Welcome, devoted history enthusiasts, to a truly dark and devastating chapter of our human past. Imagine a freezing night where phantom riders decimate the nobles with absolute impunity. These were the dreaded Oprichniki, Russia's very first secret police, unleashed by a mad monarch. Ruled by Ivan the Terrible, this ruthless shadow force dragged an entire magnificent empire into darkness. How did a deeply traumatized orphan transform into a paranoid tyrant who vanquished his own people? The tragic year is 1570, and a heavy blizzard buries the desolate streets of ancient Moscow. Without a single warning, thousands of massive black war horses charge violently through the freezing city gates. These are the dreaded Oprichniki, a ruthless royal vanguard clad completely in dark, heavy shadows. Hanging from their massive saddles are grim canine emblems and rustic brooms, tightly tied with dark ribbons. These bizarre symbols carry a dreadful meaning, striking absolute fear into every beating Russian heart. The canine emblem means they will fiercely hunt down the Tsar's royal enemies until their very last dying breath. The rustic broom signifies their absolute duty to sweep away any lingering treason from the Grand Empire. Tonight, their targets are the wealthy Boyars, the arrogant elite nobles who once ruled this land with immense pride. Heavy wooden doors are smashed open as sleeping. Terrified families are forcefully pulled into the freezing snow. Luxurious velvet coats are violently torn and stained with crimson, while fallen lords cry out in absolute terror. There is no formal trial, no impartial judge, and absolutely no divine mercy shown to these once powerful lords. Standing high on a Kremlin balcony, Tsar Ivan coldly watches the grim devastation unfold below. His deep-set, hollow eyes reflect the raging fires, gleaming with a truly terrifying, paranoid satisfaction. He is ruthlessly purging his entire realm, completely convinced that a massive conspiracy surrounds his royal throne. But to understand this horrific madness, we must look back at a tragic childhood bathed in devastating trauma. We slowly rewind to 1538, standing inside the dark, oppressive halls of the majestic ancient Kremlin. Young Ivan is merely an 8-year-old boy, completely orphaned and entirely surrounded by treacherous, fierce wolves. Although he is the destined future Tsar, he holds absolutely no real power in this highly dangerous, ruthless court. The greedy Boyar lords eagerly seize absolute control, completely ignoring the fragile and helpless royal heir. Ivan is often left entirely alone in freezing chambers, suffering from intense hunger and profound neglect. He wanders the long, shadowy corridors, dressed in faded silk, hiding from the deeply arrogant nobility. These treacherous lords feast on lavish banquets, mercilessly mocking the weak and utterly terrified little boy. From his dark hiding spots, young Ivan witnesses tragic eliminations and entirely relentless, cold betrayals. He watches his most loyal guardians get mysteriously poisoned and swiftly taken away in the dead of the night. Every single creeping shadow in the Grand Palace feels like a deadly, imminent threat ready to strike him down. A truly profound and deeply twisted lesson slowly begins to take firm root inside his shattered, traumatized mind. He painfully learns that showing any mercy or gentle kindness is a fatal weakness in this unforgiving world. To survive the venomous Boyars, one must rapidly become a dark force far more terrifying than all of them. He quickly realizes that absolute fear is the only reliable tool to maintain supreme, unquestioned control. The boy entirely suppresses his endless tears, replacing his sorrow with a cold and calculating hatred. He begins tormenting defenseless captive birds, practicing the exceedingly cruel art of total domination. As the dark years pass, the neglected prince slowly grows into a highly intelligent and truly ruthless man. At just 16 years old, he firmly and boldly crowns himself the very first official, supreme Tsar of all Russia. But the lingering dark ghosts of his abused childhood continue to relentlessly haunt his every waking thought. Even with the heavy golden crown upon his head, the crippling paranoia completely refuses to fade away. He constantly and fiercely suspects his closest advisors of maliciously plotting to steal his hard-earned royal throne. Every quiet whisper in the Grand Court is perceived as a deadly conspiracy aimed directly at his fragile life. The sudden, tragic death of his beloved first wife completely shatters whatever frail sanity he has left remaining. Convinced the evil Boyars poisoned her, Ivan unleashes a blinding rage upon the entire terrified nation. If you grew up surrounded by constant betrayal and dark malice, could you honestly ever trust anyone again? In 1565, Ivan makes an unprecedented move that completely and utterly shocks the entire empire. Driven by intense paranoia, he officially slices the vast Russian state into two completely separate parts. One half remains under the traditional government, desperately struggling to maintain any normal daily order. The other half, the dark Oprichniki, falls under his absolute and unquestioned personal rule. To forcefully enforce his iron will within this new realm, he quickly creates his infamous, ruthless, secret police. The Oprichniki swear a dark blood oath to forsake their families and serve only the mad Tsar. Clad entirely in black and riding fiercely, they quickly become the terrifying instruments of his royal wrath. They are granted limitless legal immunity to swiftly hunt down anyone suspected of foul treason. The once grand ancient Kremlin slowly transforms into a suffocating fortress of endless dark suspicion and dread. Ivan paces aggressively in his dim and quiet throne room, his gaunt, terrifying shadow stretching across the walls. He dictates endless lists of supposed traitors, condemning completely innocent men based on pure, utter delusion. The ominous Black Riders strike quickly, confiscating vast royal estates and completely erasing ancient noble lines. According to historical records, entire innocent towns are ruthlessly swept away for imaginary crimes. The devastating fall of Novgorod stands as the most truly horrifying example of their unforgiving cruelty. Thousands of absolutely innocent citizens are ruthlessly punished and thrown into the freezing Volkhov River. The Tsar's fiercely loyal enforcers invent twisted new methods to ruthlessly extract false and harrowing confessions. Crimson constantly stains the snowy courtyards as the paranoid monarch ruthlessly eliminates all his rivals. Absolutely no one is safe from the sweeping brooms and the snapping jaws of the dreaded, relentless black cavalry. The powerful Boyars, once proud and arrogant, now painfully live in a constant state of paralyzing, silent fear. They always sleep fully dressed, entirely terrified that the Black Riders will violently break down their doors by midnight. Ivan has successfully reversed the cruel power dynamic of his deeply traumatic, miserable childhood. The deeply abused orphan is now the supreme predator, eagerly feeding on the terror of his former tormentors. However, this dark and absolute control comes at a truly devastating cost to the entire Russian economy. Desperate farmers flee their lands in sheer panic, leaving vast agricultural fields completely abandoned. A remarkably severe famine begins to grip the once prosperous nation, painfully starving the innocent commoners. Does absolute, extreme power inherently breed madness? Or does it simply reveal all our darkest inner demons? By 1572, even Ivan realizes his monstrous creation has grown dangerously out of control. The Oprichniki have become far too powerful, threatening the very stability of his grand empire. In a truly sudden and shocking twist, the paranoid king ruthlessly purges the leaders of his own secret police. The dark uniforms are strictly and permanently banned, and simply mentioning their name becomes a highly severe crime. He desperately attempts to erase the dark nightmare he created, but the deep scars remain entirely permanent. We fast forward to his dark final years. The once terrifying Tsar is now a frail and completely broken old man. Dressed quietly in a simple monk's robe, he aimlessly wanders the empty, dark corridors of his desolate palace. His hollow eyes are constantly haunted by the many restless ghosts of the absolute thousands he ruthlessly vanquished. During his long reign, the empire expanded massively, aggressively conquering vital new lands towards the Deep East. He established the vital foundations of a modern state, centralizing immense, absolute power in ancient Moscow. Yet, his legacy is forever deeply stained by the horrific brutality of his paranoid secret police. The psychological trauma of a neglected child resulted in a truly devastating national tragedy. He successfully conquered his many external enemies, but completely lost the fierce battle against his own mind. The frozen fields outside the Grand Kremlin are littered with the innocent, starving victims of his paranoia. He finally dies a lonely tyrant, leaving behind a deeply traumatized nation hovering on the brink of chaos. Ivan the Terrible forged a mighty and fully unified Russia, but he built it deeply inside a dark cage of terror. Ivan relentlessly expanded his vast empire, but built it upon a dark foundation of absolute terror. Was he a necessary dark evil for Russia, or just a cruel madman? Please share your deep thoughts in the comments below. If you thoroughly enjoyed this dark historical journey, please like, share, and subscribe to our growing channel today.